Well, good day, ladies and gentlemen. How are you? I'm Bruce McDonald, and this is the Talamanca Review. And I gotta say, man, as seductive as everything in the world is now to comment on, um, I'm gonna try and kind of take a break. And believe me, this is not easy for me. um, I have a million and one questions and a million and one comments about everything that's going on right now. Um, there's, I suppose this is a time of forced awakening, if you will. And if you're not getting to the point where you understand what life is and you understand what the energies that make life are, if you don't understand what you really are, aside from your birth certificate and the pictures people take of you, then this has got to be one of the most difficult times you've ever been alive. For the rest of us, or for those of us, not the rest of us, who have an inkling of themselves, it's much easier to go through, right? And I don't mean to be all, detached, like David Carradine in Kung Fu, just, I'm above it all. I'm not above it all. But I'm not going to allow this to destroy me. But it is amazing how, like, 15 minutes on X or Instagram can drive you into an insane rage, right? It's almost like demonic transference through digital channels. Now, because of the sanctity of where I live and the cleanliness of where I live, both physically and spiritually in the rainforest, I just need to get up, walk away, and go talk to my wife for 5 minutes or do something else, and it all goes away. But I don't know how people living in the concentration camps we call cities in North America now get away from this. How do you get away from this? How do you have a pleasant time at a coffee shop? It's just unbelievable. And for my part, everything is happening just according to plan. There's no great surprises here. I think the end will surprise people, but we're years away from the end yet. And not to be too cryptic, I'm talking about the fate of the Abrahamic religions themselves. Okay? So they're going away. Right? Those who have their eyes open now can see quite clearly that most of what's going on is the machinations of man. It's big money, it's lobbying, it's all of these sorts of things. I don't see much God, you know? Aren't the prophecies supposed to be the will of God? I don't see too much God involved in this. I see very well choreographed and very well timed global incidents to, make this look like it's a prophecy fulfilling. But it isn't. It absolutely isn't, okay? It's ridiculous. All right, I promised I wasn't going to talk about this. I'm going to get back into the devil in us, and then we're in the first chapter. Now, the chapters I'm going to go over in this book are the ones unrelated to me, because the book is half my personal biography and half the story of the world. So 3 chapters at the beginning that introduce my childhood and my upbringing, 6 chapters in the middle, and 3 chapters in the end that bring you to the state I'm at in my life now. And because the book is about this negativity that we call the devil, and the 7 sections I did, the devil part 1 to 7 in this series, were all coming off that one chapter, the devil. Very powerful chapter. I was helped very much by a friend of mine who has an acute understanding of these things. It's not something I would recommend that somebody become an expert in, but it's an interesting piece of knowledge I came about, and that's all I'll say about that. Now, as you get into the book, we get into a section where I introduce the 20th century, okay? Now, the 20th century, if you're looking at it closely, okay? And I would love to hear an evolutionary biologist's opinion on this. Okay? How do you go from clay pots, outhouses, which means shitting into a hole in the ground, horses, farming, and trains as the only mode of transportation, or covered wagon, which would take you weeks to get a very short distance by horse, by covered wagon, the Uber of the 1800s. How do we go from that state of living, which, let's be honest, I mean, except for some movements forward in the what we call the Enlightenment in the West, which is the Renaissance, the awakening of let's call it the secular mind, or the mind not dominated by the Vatican, which was an extremely oppressive force in Europe, very oppressive force. I don't mean to, I always have to guard what I say, we live in such a testy time now. And I just want to let people know that I'm not trying to offend you, or your faith. I know that Candace Owens just converted to Catholicism. I left it at 17. Good on her for going into it. There's, I suppose, a spiritual tradition there. But not for me. And it's just lazy. All of the Abrahamic stuff it's just lazy. It's lazy. If you want to know something about consciousness, then do the work. How do you get good at anything? You practice, you practice, you practice. You find what works for you, and you continue to practice it, practice it, practice it, practice. All right, so let's take a look at the ending of the 1800s, and it's a very interesting time in American history. A lot happened in the 1800s that formed the essential character of the United States at the time. Believe it or not, America was on a trajectory to be a very spiritual society. We had something, or they had, because I'm Canadian, but they had something called the Transcendentalist movement. I would say that it starts with Walt Whitman, and then you get writers like Henry David Thoreau, things like this. So Whitman is famous for his epic and operatic 1855 poem Leaves of Grass, which heralded in the United States a culture to reckon with, a new culture separate from Europe, and capable of producing its own music and its own poetry and its own ethos. Though at that time in America, most of the culture had been violence. Here's a little bit of Walt Whitman for you from Leaves of Grass, his epic poem. Have you reckoned 1,000 acres much? Have you reckoned the earth much? Have you practiced so long to learn to read? Have you felt so proud to get at the meaning of poems? Stop this day and night with me, and you shall possess the origin of all poems. You shall possess the good of the earth and sun. There are millions of suns left. You shall no longer take things at second or third hand, nor look through the eyes of the dead, nor feed on the specters in books. You shall not look through my eyes either, nor take things from me. You shall listen to all sides and filter them from yourself. I have heard what the talkers were talking, the talk of the beginning and the end. But I do not talk of the beginning or the end. There was never any more inception than there is now, nor any more youth or age than there is now, and will never be any more perfection than there is now, nor any more heaven or hell than there is now. Powerful stuff, man. For 1855, sounds like sounds like the pep talk somebody would give you before an ayahuasca trip or something. 1855, Walt Whitman. Now, of the major voices of the American Transcendentalist movement, the one that resonates with me the most is Henry David Thoreau. Now, most people know him from a book called Walden, and it's the story of Thoreau leaving society behind. You can maybe guess why I like him so much. And society was not nearly as developed as it is now. He goes to live in a small shack in the woods beside a pond named Walden. And the book details Thoreau's dissatisfaction with society and his spiritual connection with nature. Now, here is the quote for which he's most known. You've probably heard this before, but you might not have known that it was Henry David Thoreau that said it. The mass of men lead lives of quiet desperation. What is called resignation is confirmed desperation. From the desperate city, you go into the desperate country and have to console yourself with the bravery of minks and muskrats. A stereotyped but unconscious despair is concealed under what are called the games and amusements of mankind. There's no play in them, for this comes after work, but it is a characteristic of wisdom not to do desperate things. The mass of men lead lives of quiet desperation. True then, and it was true now. So Thoreau falls into this same time frame, the late 1800s. Now, the time in American history leading up to the Transcendentalist movement in the mid-19th century was one gripped with blood and conflict. Now, men behave a certain way in the absence of enforced law. The law was stretched thin in the formation of the United States of America. It lacked the institutional stability of Europe. But it was precisely that lack of law that allowed for the individual spirit to express itself so freely, because the law they fled from was a corrupt law, and a corrupt law is worse than no law. The integration between the natives and the Europeans did not go well for the natives, nor did it go well at times for the settlers. People don't give up their land easily. And that should be fairly easy to understand at 12:27 a.m. on Saturday, the 27th of April, 2024. People don't easily give up their land. So, as we go as a people, everywhere we go, we take with us the shadow of the apocalypse given to us by somebody else's prophets, never once realizing that in the unconscious shadow of that apocalypse, we became the apocalypse for so many other people. You see how that works? You see the law of manifestation there? You see the secret at work? But it's not just what you consciously and everything we say about manifestation is wrong. Everything. It's almost like everything in the West just gets tainted somehow, corrupted somehow. It's like there's a filthy filter that things have to go through before they can arrive at the public's doorstep. But they don't arrive intact. It's like a broken Amazon package. You know? Now, these prophets aren't ours. Okay? If you're a Christian now, or a Muslim, these prophets are not yours. They're not. These are the prophets of the Hebrew people. All of them. Including Muhammad wouldn't exist without the prophets that preceded him, and Jesus wouldn't have been able to articulate his mission without the prophets who preceded him, because he inserted himself into the Jewish prophetic system. He did that the moment he claimed he was the Messiah. Okay? Son of God, which I have to say I agree with the Muslims on this. I don't think anybody could be the Son of God. In fact, he isn't. I mean, the research I've done over the years is really quite shocking, actually. Again, I did a podcast with John some time back about angels or demons and UFOs. And even Tucker Carlson is now out there on the public stage saying that, extraterrestrials are a spiritual phenomenon, and it's a binary system, so they're either good or they're evil. It's a very interesting statement to make. I mean, I said something extremely similar in Stardust Ranch, The Incredible True Story, the book I wrote with John Edmonds. And it's right in the language, really. So the language states that you're extra, which means more than, and terrestrial, which means the earth. So you're more than the earth. You're a being that is more than the earth. Okay, so I'm a human being, and I am of the earth. My body is made up and borrowed from the earth. All the minerals in my body, all the little bits of electricity, the fire, which is elemental, the water, we're of the earth. This is why our bodies decompose and go into the earth, because we are of the earth. Amazing that this planet could produce us and sustain us. It's part of a spiritual construction. So, never once realizing that in the unconscious shadow of that apocalypse, we became the apocalypse for so many other people. That's quite a thing to say. Quite a thing to say, and well. So, that doesn't mean that the natives were not entirely a peaceful and pastoral people. They weren't. They were very aggressive as well. But like I said, people don't easily give up their land. Why would they? Land, by the way, is the only real wealth in the world. Gold and silver are just markers of land. It's like portable land. Okay? And then the fiat note is a further dilution of the connection between land, water, and wealth. A lot of people are going to learn this the hard way in the very near future. If you don't have land now, you have nothing. They can devalue the paper, which they're in the process of doing now. The baby boomers may scrape out, but not really. I think they're going to get fleeced. There's too much money there. If you look at what's going on, it's just been looting since 2001. 2-point-something trillion dollars missing from the Pentagon's budget, announced by Donald Rumsfeld the day before 9/11. What a grand coincidence for him. And talking about dropping what seemed like a problem when he said it out loud into a context that swallowed it up. So suddenly the Pentagon's budget became like, somebody swallowed by a whale. The larger problem is the whale now. Okay, 9/11 happened. So, I don't know, it's so hard to stay on track, Now, the natives of North and South America live by a different law, other than English common law or the French civil law or the Spanish common law. So I live by Spanish common law. Spanish common law is very, very interesting, actually. Very, very interesting. And the statutory stuff, they have tremendous difficulty bringing the straw man system into Latin America. Seriously, man, it's like incredibly difficult. People just have a way of living over here that it's mind-boggling. You know, I had to just transfer money from one bank in North America to my wife's bank in Costa Rica. I had to tell her to get a bank account. You know, she was like 48 years old. She had never in her life had a bank account. Stop and think about that for a second. Oh, we're going to digital currency. Really? Where? Where? We're going to digital currency. How? How much have you traveled, YouTube guy? How much of this world have you seen? That CDBC, you know, what do you call it? CBDC, Central Bank Digital Coin. That CBDC is that the way they're gonna trade chickens in the Congo? Huh? That gonna work for the cocaine coming out of Mexico? Pull your head out of your ass. We're not going to any, maybe the concentration camp countries. So there's this incredible inversion going on now. And it seems far less than random, far less than prophetic. It seems organized. It seems calculated. You can almost see the puppet master's hands, you know? Get the COVID. A forced medical regimen so severe many people lost their jobs. Okay? Incredible dilapidation and destruction, usually by fire, of a significant number of the large food processing plants in the United States. I find that a bit coincidental. Loads of immigrants coming across the border, and mixed in with them groups that are very hard to define. Well, a separate channel coming in with all the South and Central American immigrants. South America if they're crossing the Darien Gap, but alongside these people there's all these Chinese men coming in. Now, number one, why are they doing that? Ask yourself why they're doing that. You can go from China to the United States, you just get a visa. Do you know it's very expensive to go through the smugglers' routes? That's a black market commodity. Black market commodities are always more expensive because the illegal nature of them is an add-on value for the seller. So why would some dude in Shenzhen be sending his unemployed brother-in-law to go to the United States through wherever they're dropped off in South America and all the way up, crossing the Darien Gap, incredibly dangerous, and then all the way up through Central America, with every Central American country participating in it, by the way. Panama, Costa Rica, Nicaragua, El Salvador, Honduras, Guatemala, Belize, then you hit the Mexican border. Every single Central American country is aiding this vast migration of millions of people annually to the Texas-Mexico border or the Arizona-Mexico border. So my question stands, what are the Chinese doing in there when they can just fly? Don't you think a $1,200 plane ticket and a 22 or a 23-hour flight with a visa would be cheaper than paying snakeheads? So the interesting thing about Chinese communism is there's no iron curtain. They don't own the people the way Russian communism used to. You can come and go from China. If you have money, you can go. So why are there so many Chinese immigrants illegally, or we could say it's tacitly legal? Why are they all going up through the Mexico border? What's going on there? Hard to say. I mean, I'll leave you to figure it out yourself. Sometimes Asking questions is more important than answering them. When you try to answer too many questions and you're speculating, you can easily be called a conspiracy theorist. And it's a valid retort when you make too many unfounded summations about events that you haphazardly connect together. But asking the question is a good thing. Why are they doing it? I just explained to you how easy it would be for a Chinese person with the money to get a 6-month visitor's visa to the United States and then seek asylum once there. Why go through all of this horse shit of all the way up through all this arduous weeks-long migration that, by the way, people die doing? Why do it? If you're a Chinese citizen and you have a Chinese passport, why do it? I mean, are these the low social credit score people coming over? I don't mean to be facetious, but, you know, is that how they get out of China, with low social credit score? So, okay, so by the time of the Transcendentalists, America had already conceded itself to the European powers that it sought to escape. Now, the War of 1812 consolidated European banking in the United States of America. And where the banks are, the law is. The foundation of law in capital-based democracies or republics is money. Money and law are almost synonyms. The more money you have, the more law you have access to. And it's not just that, it's like the money is its own law. It is the principal definition of property, right? Money is property. So, of course, this is no kind of law that anybody wants in a civilized society. The banks and compound interest are part of an old law that we were supposed to let go of millennia ago. And this is the Babylonian law. It's been carried forward throughout human history by several dark groups. Its sole purpose is the ownership and control and eventual destruction and enslavement of societies. It never fails as long as its law is not broken. The people doing this, the people behind money, are occultists. Generally, you'll find that any attempt to entrap or enslave any other class of being is the work of the occultist. And where human beings try to enslave other human beings, you'll find at the top of that, the real movers and shakers making that happen, you'll find an occult elite. Everywhere. Everywhere. Okay? You could make the case that Solomon learning to command the demons through the signet ring and getting them to build the temple was not religion, it was occultism. Okay? Occultism is always dangerous. There's a reason that the prophets warn against it. A lot of these people in the New Age movement might take heed. Okay? Occultism never ends well. Never ends well. The human being was not necessarily created to speak to all kinds of different classes of beings and spirits. The human being was created to communicate directly with the principal spirit of the Creator. And that spirit of the Creator leads us back to the Creator. Okay? So spirit, or the Holy Spirit, the spirit of the Creator, the thoughts and feelings of the Creator, which are not thoughts and feelings, a current of sound and light that are freely given to us as an energy source to think, to feel, to live, to do everything. All by these unceasing resonances coming from the prime Creator. These resonant sounds and subsounds that make up our audible reality. That is what a spiritual life is. It's life with spirit. Life with spirits is spiritualism. Seances, voodoo, palomayombi, Santeria, Judaism, as in my opinion has pretty much descended into occultism as a religion and deep dark black magic while we're at it. Not just them. It's the Vatican is steeped in it as well now. So they've become occultists as well, the College of Cardinals and the upper classes of the Vatican. They may have their reasons for doing that. I'd have to ask them. I don't know, but there's no doubting that they are now occultists, as are the Jews. There's little or no worship of the Creator in those religions anymore. They're militant guerrilla groups giving themselves license to kill based on a blood oath to a dogmatic scripture and a priestcraft that is so thoroughly corrupted now, they're almost subhuman. All of them. And it's interesting because they're the ones calling other people less than human. I think to anybody whose eyes are open and whose eye is opened, it's these religious fanatics who are the subhumans, and they're not going to be around that much longer. Well, it's hard to pick a side. And it is for me anyways. I mean, it's just hard to pick a side. Who cares? A bunch of people, either one of those groups, if they were to gain power over the world, the Muslim caliphates that are backing the Palestinians, who are under the leadership of Hamas, pretty much as Tel Aviv describes them, as Jerusalem describes them. You can't defend them, okay? But you also can't defend the Zionists. You can't. They're not just peaceful Jewish farmers looking to get on after the Holocaust. Give me a fucking break. They're after the oil in the Gaza, and they want their temple. They want that Al-Aqsa Mosque gone, and that was made clear before the October 7th attack through the importation of the red heifers from the United States. Okay? And increased belligerence around the temple. And it goes right up to the government. Netanyahu is involved in this as well. Okay? So they don't want they haven't stopped any of the illegal settlements moving out into the West Bank, the killing of Palestinians, the seizing of their land, just like we did to the natives. I wonder if the line from the Bible, the meek shall inherit the earth, means the simple people who stay close to the earth. I think it does. I don't know. So, everything is law if you're watching closely. The sun rising and setting is a law. The rains are a law. The coming and going of generations is a law. The medicines that come from the plants are a law. The lore and the mythos within which the people lived or live is a law. People are never without law because law forms environment. By the time of the Transcendentalists, America had, as I said, already conceded itself. When people figure out the ruse, and they're starting to figure it out now, that we've been robbed, we've been fleeced, we've been energy harvested, our intentional energy goes into building basically the modern equivalent of pyramids for hedge fund managers and all these jackasses. The richest guys on the planet is a guy who figured out how to send shopping to your front door. That's his genius, how to streamline shopping to your front door. Wipe out all the small businesses. That's what we call a genius in the early 21st century. Then marries a whore who walks the streets with him, dressed like a crack whore going to important events. This is what we call class in the 21st century. Jeff Bezos and his whore. Sorry, I don't mean to be disrespectful. I don't know the woman. I've only seen pictures. But she's a whore. Okay? And it is what it is. And they're all like that, these billionaires. I mean, none of them really did anything to make their money. I don't even think Elon Musk is real. You can get depressed watching the Talamanca Review, folks. But you can also get optimistic. My fundamental thesis is the only hero you're going to find is yourself. And the only thing you should believe in is in yourself. And the only thing you should invest in is yourself. Okay? Stop looking for heroes. Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker. They don't exist. Nobody's going to save you. Okay? Nobody is. If they were going to save you, they'd be doing it now. Because it's the 11th hour now. And people still don't have a really clear understanding of what's going on. It's kind of pathetic, actually. So the sole purpose of the Babylonian law, the money system, is ownership and control and eventual destruction and enslavement of societies. When people figure out the ruse, they rebel. But by that time, the architects of the banking system already have a military force in place to enforce their law. Almost every war in the last 400 years has been a war instigated by banks or bankers. Clearly, we know that banks are not the only reason for war because the concept of war precedes banking. Now, I call the American Transcendentalist movement the last breath of America, or the last free breath of America, the last breath of a free America. Now, what happened next was the Industrial Revolution. The world's first factory appeared in the United Kingdom. They were also the first to break free of the Vatican control with the Church of England and the Bank of England. With the inception of this bank and the utility of fiat notes, Britain promulgated the British Empire, the Navy, and expanded their market after one of the greatest naval victories in military history against the Spanish Armada, which the oddmakers had them almost no chance of winning, but they did, through some slight changes in the wind. And now the Spanish Armada represented the Vatican forces in Europe. Now, England commenced the colonization of new lands with only the slightest of competition from the French in Canada and significant competition from the Spanish in Central and South America, where I live. Now, this gave us the empire, which stood until the end of the Second World War, after which it was decimated and power was transferred to Washington and Wall Street, or a portion of the power, where it had been gathering power in isolation from the ravages of war, which had decimated Europe. Now, this is how historians look upon it, but history is not a multidimensional science. Doesn't understand causality, magic, karma, and it certainly doesn't acknowledge the secret societies that are in operation. Now, the real power in the West was held between the Vatican, London City, and Washington, and this power was represented by three artifacts of their shared religion, the obelisks, which had been brought over from Egypt, the war obelisk in Washington, the money obelisk in London City, and the harvest obelisk in Vatican City. All three of them brought brick by brick across the waters to be erected in the power centers. The failing of history is the failing of us. The laws of our societies in the West are the laws of war now, and they have been for some time. To the victor go the spoils. It doesn't seem like war, but it is. It's spiritual warfare. It's now, and it is now and always has been, a spiritual warfare which determines the kind of society in which we live. To the vast majority of people, this war is unseen. To the religiously literate, it is a battle for souls. Unfortunately for them, religious literacy is spiritual illiteracy. In our case, the victors were the secret societies, and the secret societies have always controlled the religions in the West. The goal of the secret societies is the suppression of spiritual consciousness, not the growth of it, the suppression of it. Okay? So the occult principle of dominance, the occult spirituality is liberation and service to the Creator. The occult is worship of self, aggrandizement of self, the gathering of power for self, and the enslavement and manipulation of other people so their energy, the resource of their lives, goes to enriching you in some way. In 2024, we call that a success story. You know, Jeff Bezos, Mark Cuban, you know, just not really great heroes for our children to be looking up to at all. Okay? It's the suppression of spiritual consciousness that is the worst thing done on the planet. Okay? So why are you, if you don't believe what I'm saying, you just got to look at things and you'll see it. Okay? It's always been here. It's going away now. This is the cycle we're in now. It's going away. Okay? And with it, all of these systems are going to collapse and they're going to be revealed for what they are. And there's going to be a lot of very upset and very angry believers. Okay? God never wanted you to believe in anything. God wanted you to know Him. You got to make the journey to God consciousness, or part way there, so that you're speaking from a position of experience. It's very important, as opposed to belief. Although belief will never go away, faith will never go away. It's what keeps us unfolding. Okay? So, I think we'll leave it there for now, but we're going to continue with this theme of the 20th century. The last thing before I go is I want to tag this idea of evolution again. Why is it, if evolution is a valid theory, do we stay basically at the same level of living for 2,000 years? Majority of people are illiterate. They can't read or write until about the 1900s. We're shitting in outhouses, unless you're a king or something. We're traveling the same way we traveled for centuries, which is horseback, or walking, or ship, or train, as we get into the 1800s in North America. And then we get this incredible leap forward at the beginning of the 20th century, the 1900s. We get cities like Chicago and New York, and and they just build up and build up and build up, and they just keep growing, and they're drawing the people from the land, from the country. Big mistake. Never leave land. I was born in a city, horrible city, Ottawa, Canada, capital city, and I came back to land, and I've never been happier. Okay? Now, one of the things that I bought myself when I built the earthbag house in the Talamanca Mountains of southern Costa Rica was time. It doesn't really exist, but while you're here in a body, it's best to operate as though time is a precious commodity. Now, the society I left in Canada kept everybody busy paying their bills, and in the 10 years I've been here in Central America, it's just gotten worse. I mean, you could spend a half a day just on TikTok or X, listening to people sing their woes about trying to survive in Canada. Pay rent, buy groceries, just live like a normal human being. The jobs don't pay the money to live there anymore. And yet they keep bringing in all these immigrants, 500,000 a year. It doesn't make any sense. Nothing that's going on right now makes any sense if you believe the public narrative. But we don't believe the public narrative, do we? This is something else entirely. Okay? Anyways, that's the Talamanca review for tonight. I'm Bruce McDonald, and we'll see you again. Probably I'll do another one tomorrow, Saturday. Peace out, folks.